everyone. I am Lateralus of Team Rankstar, and I do have my teammate here with me today.
Hey everybody, this is EndoZoa recording with Lateralus again.
And I do want to take a moment to apologize for the length of time that we've had between these videos. Just had some other content to get out and some just real life stuff happening. So again, I do apologize, but I hope the rest of these videos will come out a lot quicker. But just as a reminder that we are counting down now from 20 to 15 or 16 of our top 25 best cards in TSL. We did have a oopsies the last time. We did go one card too far. We got a little bit of ahead of ourselves, and we did briefly go over Sorcerer's Negation. So I'm not going to go over that one again. So this one we are just going to be hitting 4 cards, 16 through 19. But as a quick recap, real quick, our criteria was that these cards are based on their influence of the meta, their impact in the high tier decks, and of course their effect on a game when played within a singular match. So we have coming at 19, and that is going to be Hand of Gough. Now this was very new card, came out with Houses of Morrowind, and I think this was probably one of the most hyped cards once it was revealed. And I think the main reason that we are seeing it on this list is because it's the card that, it's the reason you play Gough. And I think the reason that it might be as low as it is because there just hasn't seemed to be a great Gough deck yet to really come into the meta and establish itself as like a high tier 2, low tier 1 type deck, or even haven't really seen it much in tournament play. But yeah, what do you think about it?
Yes, this is one of the most insanely high power level cards in the game in a vacuum. If you remove the color requirements, it does have the issue of being a little bit unimpactful in the sense that it doesn't actually do anything when you play it. Now that isn't like that abnormal for cards, but because it doesn't have guard, doesn't have charge, it doesn't directly impact the board, so you are taking a tempo loss to develop it. However, it is so hard to deal with from so many different decks. Whether you're a control deck that is going to have a hard time dealing with a warded big body on 5, or you're an aggro deck that just can't deal with the fact that there's a 5 power drain that you can't really afford to take the time off to kill, and you're not going to be able to race. It's just almost always insane as long as you have the time to actually use it. I had way higher on my list, but I think, as you said, because of the lack of popularity and really just kind of the lack of a good Gough shell currently existing, we've had a really hard time as a competitive community refining that deck. I think it falls down to here as a result.
All right, so let's move on to number 18, and that is going to be Goblins Hulk. This has been one of the most dominant 2-drops in the history of Legends. Probably a little less so now than it used to be. I remember that, I mean, this card was pretty much, I mean, it still is a fantastic turn 1 or even turn 2 play, but turn 1 really was like a super high tempo card. It can really take over a game grabbing a curse or something like that. But we don't see that as much now. I feel like we see it more grabbing like Cruel Fire Blooms or something like a Septum's Guardman and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, this card, we talk about cards that warp the meta. I think it's very similar to Corner Club Gambler in some ways, actually. We talk about, the reason that you oftentimes see decks playing Reverberating Strike or Crushing Blow is to be able to answer a Gambler. Skulk is a card that, like, your mulligan phase is often dominated by the presence of Goblin Skulk. You'll say, oh, I need to keep a Heartbeat because I need an answer to Skulk. There aren't a lot of cards that demand that much respect, and when this card does get to do what it wants, it's extremely powerful. It is brittle in the sense that, while strong, it is easy to answer. There are a lot of things that do 2 damage. Things like Firebolt being some of the most common interactive cards in the game. Also Heartbeat, like I said before. But yeah, when it gets, it can very easily snowball itself, and it's kind of inherently synergistic with itself in that it protects its own body with things like curses, fire blooms, Nords, like we mentioned before. So yeah, super strong card.
All right, so let's move on to number 17, and that's going to bring us to Daggerfall Mage. Now, historically, this has also been an insanely powerful card, I think, for a long time, especially in closed beta and even after the game's full release. This was considered possibly the best card in the game. It does tend to fall out of the meta every now and then when the meta gets a little hyper aggressive, which we kind of experienced not too long ago before this previous patch, but the meta slowed down a little bit since then, and so that's why I think you're seeing it's a great comeback. And I think it's just the versatility of this card being able to fit in most shells is another really big benefit to this card.
It certainly is a lot stronger in the current meta that we're in than it was in the Scout meta. The reduction in Drain Vitality presence has helped this card significantly, but B, the metagame that surrounded Scout, because you basically had to race Scout, was extremely proactive and fast, like you were saying. So oftentimes, Daggerfall Mage wouldn't actually have the time to play its minigame. It wouldn't have the time to use the tomes it generated. But we're in a state now where games often do have a little bit more grinding potential to them, and it is one of the strongest cards in mid-battle Mage, which is one of the best decks in the game right now. So I think it definitely has earned its spot for that reason, as well as just its historical dominance as a card.
All right, and now we are going to come to the last card on this video, and that is going to be number 16, Talia's Conscription. Now, if you've known me, you know that I've been pretty outspoken about this card even before Houses of Morrowind. I think it is absolutely one of the most powerful cards in the game. I actually had this ranked higher than the rest of my team. I think I had it all the way up at 4. It's just one of those cards that it really can kill certain kind of control archetypes, and it's honestly not terrible in shells that aren't just dedicated to being control. So I think one of the things that people keep saying about it is like, oh, it costs 11. A lot of decks can kill you by 11, or you have to build your deck around it. And I kind of disagree, because it's not very hard to build around. You already want a large sum of 2-drops in your deck anyways. If you can see our list, there's tons of fantastic 2-drops, even in our top 25. But adding an extra play set of 2s is not like a huge negative when you have such a powerful end game that can, you can just play a card and say, ha, I got you, kind of thing. Especially if the game's getting grindy in terms of card advantage, and it's like there's not many cards in your hand or your opponent's hand, and then you play something like this and just fill a board with 6 to 8 creatures. It can be really impactful, and I think we do see this kind of almost dominating the ladder meta currently.
Yeah, I think about a lot as a team is the fact that if it weren't for Ox Telvanni existing, I think I think we basically just all agreed as a team that TC Telvanni is a tier 1 deck, and that the reason we just don't see it in tournament play is because high level tournament players that they just play Ox, because that's arguably the very best deck in the game. But as far as ladder play and basically every player that isn't one of the top tournament players is concerned, I mean, that's just one of the best decks you can possibly be playing, and it's built around this deck as its core win condition. It's also a staple card and a defining card in many other kind of tier 2 or 3 decks. TCG Veterans seen some success. I think we as a team don't think it's that strong, but it's still absolutely a very real deck. Things like Aine's TC Hualu is very strong. We've seen TC Gough from Petamax for a long time. I mean, you can basically just pick any color combination, stick this card in it, you're going to get a tier 2 or 3 deck, which is saying something. And yeah, well, I think it's just a lack of presence of the card in top tournament play. It doesn't change the fact that it's one of the most powerful cards.
Yeah, one of the things I've always wanted, I just would love to see a color slapped on this card. It doesn't even have to be dual or tricolored, like just slap a color on it to limit what it can be put in. But that's another discussion for another time. So that's going to round out our 16 through 25. And yeah, so we're going to, the next video, we didn't do too many this time, so we will do 11 through 15 as we count down, and we hope to have that one out again much sooner than the release between episode 1 and 2 here. So thank you guys for joining us, and I hope you tune in next time.